This is an inverse function question. It involves a quadratic. There is a limit in terms of the value of x. They ask us to find f to the minus 1 of this, so we want the inverse of this function. It's quite a good question to look at because it actually involves completing the square as part of our solution. So let's look at the function itself. We have f of x. We could pretend that is y equals instead of f of x. We could rewrite that equation, just say, let's say it's y equals, and then it's 5x squared minus 10x plus 7. I'm going to ignore the limit at the moment. The x is greater than or equal to 1. Now, as you know, when you're trying to find an inverse function, if you consider it in this form here, just reverse the y and the x. So I actually can rewrite my equation here as x equals 5y squared minus 10y plus 7. So I'm just replacing x with y and y with x. Now I want to rearrange this equation. If I rearrange this equation so I have y equals something, then I have my inverse function. The first step is fairly straightforward. I'm going to take away 7 from both sides. So x minus 7 equals 5y squared minus 10y. On the right hand side, we look at that and go, well, it factorizes. Now I could do 5y on the outside of a bracket, but I'm not going to, and you'll see why in a second. I'm just going to factorize the 5. So I've got 5 bracket y squared minus 2y, and that equals x minus 7, and now I can just divide both sides by 5. So my left hand side is x minus 7 over 5. My right hand side is y squared minus 2y. Now why did I do this? Well, if I factorize this, I will have two terms involving y, which I then cannot separate out. I will not end up with a single y. So it doesn't help. So when you get a situation like this, what we can do is actually try and complete the square. So if I leave my left hand side alone, so I'll just rewrite it here, so x minus 7 over 5. And I'm going to complete the square with y squared minus 2y. So that's going to give me y minus 1 squared. If you remember, you just half this figure here involving the y, the coefficient of y, so it's going to give me minus 1. Now if I expanded this out, I'm going to get y squared, I'm going to get minus 2y, that's these two terms, plus I'm going to get plus 1, which means it's 1 more than I need, so I want to subtract 1 from that. This is exactly the same as this. Now I just have a single y. So now I can rearrange my equation. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So x minus 7 over 5. I'm going to put that in the bracket to remind myself that it's one complete thing. And I'm adding 1. And that equals y minus 1 squared. The opposite of squaring is square rooting, so it makes sense to square root the whole of the left-hand side. So that is x minus 7 over 5 plus 1. And that is going to be equal to y minus 1. And I'm square rooted, so it's got to be plus or minus. Let's take this up here. And I'm going to want to add 1 to both sides, so I end up with just y on its own. Just for simplicity, I'm going to put the y on the left-hand side here, but you don't have to, but it kind of makes it look a bit neater. Adding 1, I get 1 plus or minus the root of x minus 7 over 5 plus 1. And many would think that's the final answer, but going back to here, we were given a restriction here with x has got to be greater than or equal to 1. So the value of this needs to be greater than or equal to 1. If I take away my root, whatever the value of my root is, my answer is going to be less than 1. I can't have that. I need a value of 1 or greater. So my solution, and I write this now in function notation, f to the minus 1 of x is just 1 plus the root of x minus 7 over 5 plus 1. That would get you the 4 marks in the question. If you wrote it plus or minus, you would get 3. And then working back through, I think if you get to around about this stage, you will have earned yourself possibly the 3 marks as well, certainly 2 marks, and you would get 1 mark for getting to around about this stage here. So it's a very interesting question to look at. Keep an eye out for that when you are working on these function questions. This is a particularly tricky one. Remember, you have to have the y on its own. If you're going to be forced to having 2 y's, you know there's a problem. So see whether you can actually do completing the square, and that can isolate the y term, and then you can create the correct solution.